Hello and welcome back to Odds on Champions League. First leg, quarterfinals, great 4 games to analyze with our dream team, Dani Fisichella, Alvaro Romeo. Hello, Dani.
Ciao.
Congratulations, Alvaro. Today you are a
Thank
happy
you.
man. You've been a happy man for 48 hours at least with Athletic
For 40
winning
years.
the Copa for 40 years, but especially in the last 48 hours. We are happy to be back also on YouTube. Thanks everyone for the comments. Already many comments in the video. Hopefully we can be back with you for so many years, for
Well,
so many
you never
days.
know how much you love something or someone until you miss him. That's
Yeah,
that's that's
totally.
that's the principle of life, no?
Totally.
That's why we are living
Okay.
our best life and trying to work hard for you. I'm sure Danny and Alvaro have a lot of statistics and a lot of information for these 4 games. So let's not waste any time. Thanks everyone for your love. Don't forget to subscribe. And now let's go on with the show. Well, probably the best, or one of the best 2 weeks this year with the Champions League quarterfinals. 4 great games. First one is Arsenal Bayern Munich. We have already one comment, Albert, saying Arsenal win first leg, easy bet. Well, the bookies agree with you. The odds are 1.8 for Arsenal to win. We saw them cruising against Brighton in a tough game, in a difficult game beforehand in the south of England, and we saw Bayern Munich losing again after leading to nil up in the house of Heidenheim, 2 consecutive defeats for Bayern. But the thing is, Danny, Bayern is European royalty. The head-to-head with Arsenal is clearly favorable for Bayern Munich, and I don't know if we should take in account too much the form of Bayern Munich recently in Germany, or perhaps even the game that they lost against Lazio in the first leg in the last 16 round.
Let's take them into account because I think they showed at times they have no tactical plan and they are in disarray. I think losing to Heidenheim 3-2 was a shame. Losing to this Lazio side away from home 1-0 was a really bad performance. And this is the first time Arsenal are favorite against Bayern Munich in the many times they played each other. Let's not take into account a game that happened 7 years ago. I don't even remember what I was doing 7 years ago. So it's pointless to talk about that. However, if we look at the momentum, clearly Arsenal is a team that's got a lot of it and everything is going in the right direction. Whereas for Bayern is the opposite. On Saturday, they will officially lose the title to Bayer Leverkusen, who are going to be crowned champion. It's been a very difficult season for them. When it comes to Arsenal, there are a couple of positive news for them. First of all, they got a lot of players available at the moment, and Arteta is making a lot of changes. He's using the squad wisely, rotated a lot against Luton. The likes of Smith Rowe, the likes of Partey, Reece Nelson are also getting games, and it's very important because in such a difficult and busy period, Arteta needs all of his men, and of course, he's going to stick with the best ones for this game. But things are going well for them. They won 10 of the last 11 games, 31 points out of 33. So everything changed in the turn of the years. Aggregate score of 38-4. So they're scoring a lot of goals. And they won 12 of their 15 games at the Emirates, 6 in a row in 2024. But probably the most difficult one and the most important one was the win against Porto, the grudge 1-0 win, which is a little bit of a university of what playing in the Champions League means. And it's really important that Arsenal have managed to advance in that fashion. It gives them more confidence. But then if you look at man for man, of course, Arsenal players are flying. Havertz 15 goals involvement in the Premier League, Saka 30 goals involvement in 39 games this season. Not to mention Odegaard, Martinelli, who are also playing very well, and Rice has exceeded expectations. Now 9 home clean sheets for Arsenal, yet to concede in the Champions League at the Emirates, whereas for Bayern, not so good defensive number. No away clean sheet in the last 8, only 5 clean sheets in all season in 21 games for a side, Bayern, that has also got a couple of injuries, Coman, Mazrui, Neuer, maybe it's not available, Pavlovic, Boy, so yeah, bit depleted, but nonetheless, Harry Kane looking for revenge back in North London. Tight game for me, grudge match. I can see Arsenal winning it, but not an onslaught. Under 3 goals, 172.
Well, one of the names of this tie, you mentioned it, Harry Kane, of course, going back to North London. Arsenal in great form, last 13 games, 11 wins, 1 draw, and 1 defeat was against Porto. We saw also a very close tie, Alvaro, without many goals. This is the first leg. Perhaps it's good to have a cautious approach, as Dani was telling us with this tip.
Yeah, but I wouldn't go for the goals market because I have seen it all with Arsenal this season, and the Porto thing was the exception, not the norm. Normally, Arsenal scores many goals in every game, and that's why they are the team in the Premier League with the biggest goal difference. And in the Champions League, I think they have scored a decent deal of goals as well. So no, I wouldn't go to that market. You mentioned Harry Kane. There is a nice combo over there for Harry Kane to have a shot on target and to be fouled at least once in the game. Altogether, it pays 180. It caught my eye straight away because, I think that we may see a very similar battle between Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba, but especially Gabriel Magalhaes with Harry Kane than the one we saw with Erling Haaland and Gabriel Magalhaes 2 weeks ago. So I think that, or a week ago. So I do believe that that's a very nice combo. Anyway, I love Arsenal, and I've been saying this from the beginning of the season. And they are young, but they are not that inexperienced because many of their players, they have been playing for Arsenal for 3 or 4 years already. And Mikel Arteta knows his lineup. Rotations, yes, lately, but not everywhere. Because, for example, the centre backs plays all the time. I mean, they barely get an injury. They haven't received a red card this season, and they are the best defense in the Premier League for a reason. I mean, Gabriel Magalhaes and William Saliba has been exceptional. The question is, will Zinchenko play as a left back? Will Mikel Arteta play with the 4 centre backs, putting Kivior there and Ben White on the right? Ben White on the right, we know he's going to play, but will Kivior play on the left? That's one of the questions I've got. Will Martinelli start? Maybe not, because he hasn't started the football game since his injury. Good news that Kai Havertz is scoring goals. He has scored 10 goals in all competitions already, 9 in the Premier League, which is his best ever tally in the Premier League. And I will make a special mention for Martin Odegaard. I think that he's one of the best creative midfielders in the world, and he's got a chance to prove it this time against Bayern. Bayern that, as Daniele was saying, they effectively lost the title last weekend. The worrying thing about it is that they let Heidenheim come back against them in the second half. Bayern Leverkusen are very likely to be crowned champions next weekend, and it will be the first German champion that is not Bayern since 2012. So it's refreshing for German football as well. Bayern Munich will have to look at themselves in the mirror this summer, think about what went wrong. Clearly, Harry Kane didn't go wrong. He scored 38 goals this season, and he has scored 14 goals in 17 North London derbies against Arsenal. So I think that he's going to be the danger man. But anyway, my odds will be, apart from that individual one that I spotted for Harry Kane, I love Arsenal to win alone, 178. If you want to squeeze a bit more money, I mean, there are 2 options there that I'm going to suggest. Arsenal to win and over 1.5 goals in the game, 2.0. Otherwise, an Asian handicap of minus 0.75 for Arsenal, 199. Both are, in my opinion, absolutely valid, but I prefer to stick to Arsenal to win, plain and simple.
Full trust. Then on Arsenal, I can understand Alvaro because also in the big nights this season they are delivering. We saw them against Porto in a very tense evening, but also in the Premier League against Liverpool and Man City. Among the three, they have the highest points in the classes between each other. So Arsenal, they are playing really well the big games. Totally opposite from Bayern Munich. We saw them 10 days ago losing to Borussia Dortmund. If we check the 1x2 market for this game is the one that you see below, but even if we check to qualify, Arsenal 1.69, Bayern Munich 2.5. If there are German viewers, Dani, and they want to be optimistic, apart from Harry Kane, what other weapons or how should we back Bayern somehow? Or you are not optimistic at all, seeing how things are developing, also Tuchel leaving? It looks like the dressing room is a bit lost.
No, I think the return match is much closer than what people suspect. I mean, if Bayern Munich manages to come out of the Emirates with a 1-0 defeat or a 2-1 defeat, then back at the Bayern Arena, it's a proper grudge match, of course. So don't take it for granted. I mean, Bayern numbers this season are a little bit deceiving. They score more goals than Leverkusen in the Bundesliga, and their expected goals supremacy, so which means the number of goals, so the number of games they should have won by expected goals, it's higher than Bayern Leverkusen. They have also committed a lot of individual mistakes. Remember that game against Lazio with Upamecano conceding the penalty and getting sent off. So there are some issues, but man for man, I don't think Bayern Munich are miles away from Arsenal. So yeah, I mean, the first leg is crucial, of course. The result of the first leg is crucial.
Well, someone was saying Arteta way better than Thomas Tuchel. In this, probably the Spanish manager has a lot to say in this.
Thomas Tuchel has won a Champions League, though. Thomas Tuchel has won a Champions League, and the experience is important at this stage.
Well, Mustafa, as we can see, Arsenal to score over 1.5 goals. This is going to be a great game at the Emirates. And also on Tuesday, we have the last two champions against each other, Real Madrid, Man City. Again, the third consecutive year. The first one was to Real Madrid, very lucky in the semi-final last year. To Man City, smashing Real Madrid in Manchester. And now, again, we have this clash, probably closer than the last season. Both teams in really good form. Still Man City favorite, not only for this game, 2.6, but in the ties, 2.74 for Real Madrid, 1.5. For Man City, Alvaro, Guardiola was angry, let's say, or sad because Man City had to play 3 games in the space of 10 days. Real Madrid arrived to this game really rested. Man City with some issues, injury issues. We don't know some important names like Walker, like ACCA, if they are going to be available. You see this one 50-50, Man City really favorite with De Bruyne's performance, with Phil Foden performance that we saw in the last 10 days?
No, 50-50. 50-50, definitely. I think that we tend, I said this many times before, but we tend to maximize a little bit the Premier League over the rest of the leagues. And I think that Real Madrid and Manchester City are pretty leveled right now. I think that this, all that said, the best footballing performance I have seen in the last year was the first half of Manchester City against Real Madrid at Etihad last season when they destroyed Real Madrid, and that has to be taken into account as well. But it was a different Manchester City, a Manchester City that played with a better flow. I think that this year Manchester City has taken a lot of precautions in the important games. They haven't been able to beat Arsenal or Liverpool yet, and I believe that Pep Guardiola is being very worried of the threat of the counter-attacks. So he's playing pretty much with 4 centre-backs in the games, doubling up the pivot in midfield with Rodri and someone else. Could be John Stones, who is back, by the way. He played in the weekend. He was very slow in the goal of Mateta for Crystal Palace. Rico Lewis can play there as well. But yeah, I think Manchester City is playing with a lot of precautions. In Spain, I think that there is the belief that Manchester City has a better squad than Real Madrid. I don't think so. I love Real Madrid squad. But again, I'm repeating myself because I've been saying this for the whole season. They don't have a proper good number 9 because Joselu is not that man, even though he's doing a good job. But player by player, pound by pound, Real Madrid has terrific footballers as well, really good ones and capable of competing in any scenario. And the fact that Walker will not be available, I think that he won't, gives a chance to Real Madrid and to Vinicius to fly, because Kyle Walker can be the antidote for Vinicius, but he's likely not to be there. Therefore, I'm going to drop here my first thought. I think that the Vinicius to be fouled twice or more, pace 170 is a good one because Vinicius is going to be very active on the left, that's for sure. Vinicius to score or assist, this one 225 is not bad one either. But I think that this game is going to be pretty tight. Only Atletico has beaten Real Madrid this season. In the Champions League, Real Madrid has collected all wins and only one draw. The draw was against Leipzig in the second leg of the last 16 round. The truth is that in mid-March, it looked like Real Madrid needed a break, and they got their break because they didn't play in the weekend. So, it's going to be pretty interesting. I think that the fact that both goalkeepers are likely to be out, the first choice goalkeeper, is a narrative in itself. Thibaut Courtois is clearly not playing, and probably he won't be featuring this season. Ederson, let's see. He was on the bench against Crystal Palace, but Pep Guardiola rather played with Ortega in that game, and Ortega did a fine job. The best thing for Manchester City in the game against Crystal Palace is that Erling Haaland broke his duck and he scored the goal, and then Kevin De Bruyne scored the brace, and he looked ready to play against Real Madrid or anybody else. It's going to be pretty interesting. Really good game, I think. I'm going to go for an Asian handicap plus 0.25 for Real Madrid, meaning that if they draw, you have a win, and if they win, you win it, 174. But again, precaution is going to be the word. I think that Pep Guardiola is going to make sure that very little happens in the game, and he'll try to wrap it up at the Etihad. It's incredible because 14, 15 years ago, we would have said that Pep Guardiola was going to attack, but Manchester City and the Premier League and new football and Liverpool probably has changed his approach to the games, and this is going to be reflected at Santiago Bernabeu. I have that feeling.
This is a key point. We saw it last year. It was a close game, the first leg at the Bernabeu. But the odds, Dani, to back Real Madrid, as Alvaro is doing, somehow are good. Even for a draw, it's very difficult to beat Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. This season, no defeats at home. And in the Champions League, even Man City were enabled last season to beat them. Remember also that Guardiola took a very cautious approach last year, but even Real Madrid was better in the first leg, slightly better.
It was, and this is the question, who has improved the most between these two sides year on year? I think Real Madrid have improved, albeit not having a strong number 9, but have Manchester City improved as much, or have they gone a bit down? Well, if they have gone a bit down in quality, it's from a very high level, so it is understandable. But we mentioned it with Alvaro many times. They've lost experienced players, Gundogan, Mahrez. The replacement in midfield, I don't think, is up to their standards. They're good squad players, but not as good as the players that perhaps have left. And yes, they got some injuries, issues with De Bruyne, with Haaland, etc. They seem particularly leaky, Manchester City. Of the 3 teams that are competing for the Premier League, they are the side that conceded the most goals. They've only kept 6 clean sheets in the last 16, and only 2 clean sheets in the last 8 games away from home. So yes, of course, the point that Alvaro is making about Walker missing on the side of Vinicius might be key. And they did make mistakes against Palace. They get unpicked fairly easily this season. Now, domestically, they won a lot of games because of the firepower. When it comes to Europe and playing with the elites in the continent, it could be a little bit different. So look, last season, en route to play the semi-final against Manchester City, against Real Madrid, Man City had only conceded 4 goals with 2 games more. And perhaps they played tougher opposition than this year. Borussia, Bayern, Leipzig, and Seville, who went on to win the Europa League. This season, they already conceded 8 goals with 2 games less in the Champions League. So they're conceding most goals. When it comes to Real Madrid, I think both games against Leipzig were very open, and the score sheet is not reflective of what happened on the pitch. I think Leipzig deserved at least 1 more goal in the tie, and that would have been a problem for Real Madrid. I know they are unbeaten at the Bernabeu, but the games have always been fairly open. They conceded 2 against Napoli, 1 against Atletico recently, 1 against Leipzig, as we mentioned. Real Madrid have conceded 17 times in 10 games against Manchester City. In the previous 4 games, there have been 17 goals, average 4.3 per game. I think this is going to be an over 2.5 goals. I do see Real Madrid not as far away from Manchester City as the odds suggest. Over 2.5, 180.
Funny that you go for the over. The bookies expect an over, but if it's a cautious one as last season, you can make money in the under. For instance, under 2.5 goals is 2.17, but as GL is saying, Real Madrid, they are famous for conceding first and coming back. This didn't happen last season. It's not happening that much, actually. This season, they have another approach. We will see Tchouaméni, by the way, as a center back, and many important players of Real Madrid are 1 card from suspension, like Bellingham, like Vinicius. So this could be very important for the second leg for the game at the Etihad. Great game, always interesting to see Guardiola back at Bernabeu, where many things happened to him, both good and bad. Well, this is for Tuesday. For Wednesday, the first game we are gonna analyze is the other team of my city, Atletico de Madrid, Borussia Dortmund. Here, Atletico fans are very optimistic, in my opinion, perhaps too much with this tie, because the odds are favorable for the Colchoneros. For this game is 1.88, but also to qualify, because they are so strong at home, only 1 defeat this season at the Metropolitano in their last game against Barcelona, 3-0 at home, but we saw them coming back against the runner-ups Inter Milan. At home, they are a very good team, but they have some players, Alvaro, not in great form. For instance, Morata is completely out of form. I have my doubts even about Antoine Griezmann, and to be honest, I'm skeptical to see Atletico de Madrid this favorite, especially when we've seen a great Borussia Dortmund in big stadiums. Remember, they came first in the group of death, even winning in Milan, drawing against Newcastle, and we saw them also beating PSV.
Yeah, and I think that they have been good in the Champions League, considering that they were in the group of death. They negotiated, they went through, top in the group, by the way. And then in the Champions League, then we can say that they had one of those ties in the last 16 round that was doable, not easy against PSV, but doable. And they negotiated, and they did it, and they are having a fine season in Europe, not so much in Germany. We have to say that this weekend they have lost the 5th spot to RB Leipzig. They lost to Stuttgart 1-0 with a goal from Guirassy, the excellent footballer of Stuttgart, just unleveling that game. It was, by the way, the 50th birthday of the Signal Iduna Park. I didn't know that. But, I think that Dortmund are having a good season in Europe, as I said before. I'm going to remark that very well. I think that they have been able to be competitive outside of their country, not so much in their country, but they are traveling to Madrid. And the truth is that Atletico at home, they've been rather phenomenal in the last 14 months, I would say. Only 3 defeats, 1 to Barcelona last year in January, and 2, and this is slightly more concerning, at home in the last 2 months, because they lost to Athletic Club Bilbao 1-0 in the Cup, and then they lost, and this is the hardest one to take, to Barcelona 3-0 on the 17th of March. That was an Atletico de Madrid that needed a break. That was 2.5 weeks ago. They really did need a break, because Atletico has played a lot of football in 2024, just getting far in the Cup, still playing in the Champions League. And they needed that break, and they have had that break. This is the thing, that the last time you saw Morata playing for Atletico de Madrid, he looked jaded. Same thing applies to Antoine Griezmann. But finally, they have managed to rest for 9 days, or 10 in their case, and this is going to be quite important. A few players have been recovered. I don't know if Memphis is going to be available for the game. It's my only doubt. We know that they've got the long-time injuries of, for example, Thomas Lemar, who hasn't featured this season. But, they needed this break, and I think that this break is going to play in favor of Atletico. Sometimes we tend to think that the breaks break the rhythm of a football side. But in the case of Atletico de Madrid, it's very necessary. So I'm going to back Atletico slightly with an Asian handicap minus 0.25. That pays 155. Okay. Good money for me, but I know that some of our listeners prefer to get more gains for a bigger risk as well. So Atletico to win 183 is something that I would be happy to take too. But of course, I'm not taking a big commitment for the whole tie because I think that this is going to be quite open. But Atletico at home haven't lost this season in the Champions League. Even Inter lost here in a penalty shootout. So I think that we should be taking that into consideration. When Civitas Metropolitano, Atletico ground, gets into eruption, I think that things happen, and normally those things are good for Atletico. By the way, Simeone, his numbers in the Champions League are pretty good. 100 Champions League games with Atletico de Madrid, 49% wins. That's pretty astonishing in the Champions League.
Well, these are two very strong sides when they play at home with a great crowd. But Dani, you saw Inter and you suffered Inter's defeat against Atletico at the Metropolitano, but Atletico have a lot of problems in defense, especially this season. They are not defending well. Some problems, as we are saying, in the attacking line with Morata out of form. And we saw Borussia just 10 days ago beating Bayern Munich with, for instance, Adeyemi as a very dangerous man, very fast one. Do you see also this one that bias, as the bookies are telling us? Remember, 1.6 Atletico to qualify, 2.6 for Dortmund.
I do, and I agree with Alvaro. That 9 days rest could be crucial in the season of the Spanish side. Of course, the Spanish FA didn't know that Mallorca and Atletico Bilbao would have gone to the final, so it's a pure coincidence, but it helps. And I think after an international break and players have been away, it does help. And it's true, Atletico looked a little bit leggy, but their numbers at the Vendo Metropolitano, I know they lost to Barca 3-0, but after the game against Inter, the numbers are impressive since January 2023. 28 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats, 82 goals scored. The only side able to beat Real Madrid this season in La Liga 3-1. In September, we know how strong they are at home and how hard they press. It's not a strong vintage Atletico Madrid that can keep the clean sheet away from home. And they qualified in virtue of Inter missing so many chances in the first leg. So they were a little bit lucky overall, but in the second leg, in the last 20 minutes, they really suffocated Inter. And with the introduction of Barrios, Rodrigo Riquelme, and Depay, of course, they change the game, and they got that kind of players that they can really change the game in a flash. Only kept 3 clean sheets in the last 14 Champions League games, though, Atletico Madrid. So that to testify they are not the vintage side anymore. But when it comes to Borussia Dortmund, defeated by Stuttgart 1-0 at the weekend, perhaps a little bit unlucky after 5 consecutive wins. Maybe they deserved a draw. They are unbeaten in 8 games away from home, but although they emerged from the group of death and they only lost to PSG away, against PSV, they conceded a lot of chances in both games. They lost the expected goals battles, for what is worth, in both games. So they were, on the brink of conceding a little bit more. They're looking to reach the first semi-final since 2012-2013, and they already lost 4 of the last 14 games for home games, in this season. But give me another stats about Simeone and Terzic. Terzic has only managed 2 knockout games in the Champions League. Simeone has managed 32 Champions League knockout games, never lost at home in a knockout games in the Champions League. Atletico win 188.
Okay, full trust on Atletico. Also, our audience are going for Atletico. Can trust Borussia. Corello is telling us Atletico de Madrid and both teams to score. Pedro Lucas is good also this one because Atletico, they concede. They also attack. It's not the Cholo Simeone style that we saw some years ago. Well, really favorite this Atletico de Madrid against Borussia Dortmund. Next one is PSG Barcelona. Here we have PSG as a favorite for this game, 2.05 in the Parc des Princes, probably. when the draw was made 2-3 weeks ago, we thought PSG was even more favorite for the tie. Now it's 1.8 for PSG to qualify, 2 for Barcelona, improving in the last weeks. Again, didn't play at the weekend, but also their last game wasn't a good one at home against Emmen. Las Palmas was only a 1-0 victory for Barcelona, but somehow Barcelona are now optimistic. And PSG, Dani, with the threat of Mbappe, with the problems that Barcelona also have in defense, for sure, if they play like they played against Real Madrid in the Super Cup and Vinicius taking all the chances, it would be suicidal for Xavi. How do you see this one? Because in my opinion, PSG is even more favorite than what the odds show.
Closer than what the bookies suggest, I think. Same as for Real Madrid, Manchester City. I don't think there is such a massive difference at the moment between PSG and Barcelona. We can take into account the league form, where at least for PSG, they are unbeaten in the last 27 games, but they got the leagues wrapped up. They drew 1-1 at home to bottom of the table Clermont, but Luis Enrique made so many changes. Now Mbappe starts the meaningless or the easy game from the bench, because obviously they need to get used to him leaving in the summer. So it's really difficult to take that into account. I think what goes to show is that neither of these two sides, despite they all won the league last season respectively, are a dominant force domestically. Alvaro talked at length about the issues with Barcelona, with the structure, with the defensive lack of method that was behind the many clean sheets that they kept last season. But same can be said about PSG. It is a team that wins by default at home, but they don't really dominate. And it is a side that in Europe has had inconsistent performance, although the last two against Real Sociedad were really, really good. And of course, Barcelona poses a bigger threat to PSG than Real Sociedad. They concede quite a lot of goals away from home. Barcelona, only one clean sheet in the Champions League, 4 in La Liga, although they are still unbeaten away, but I know they still have to play Real Madrid and Girona away. For example, very interesting to see what sort of midfield is available for Luis Enrique, whether Pedri is going to be back, whether it's going to be Christensen alongside Sergi Roberto. I think it changes quite a lot the complexion there, but I don't think Barcelona are going to get trashed here. I like the Asian handicap plus 0.75 for Barcelona, which pays 170. This is an Asian line, which means if Barcelona lose only by 1 goal margin, you only lose half a stake.
Well, Barcelona was very poor, in my opinion, also against Napoli, but this is another tie, some weeks after, even if they were better than the Italian side. Alvaro, do you see this Barcelona that we've been criticizing this season so much, that close to this PSG?
I think that PSG is better, but I'm not going to commit to the tie, obviously, because it would be pointless. Let's see what happens in Paris, and then we'll talk about that the next week. But yeah, Paris is better, and I think that you tend to think that Daniele thinks that this is more level than it should. And let me guys stay in between a little bit and say that I back PSG with an Asian handicap minus 0.25. If they draw, you suffer, have a lose. If they win, you win. And I think the money is pretty reasonable. 170 for that. Look, there are many stories in this game. Dembele playing against Barcelona, Luis Enrique being the coach against Barcelona. He's never been coaching against Barcelona, Luis Enrique, as far as I remember, because he went to the national side. Obviously, that didn't happen then. And this is his first experience after he took the Spanish national team, his first experience as a club manager. Achraf is suspended. I think that this gives Barcelona a little bit of an advantage on the left. If Rafinha or Joao Felix play there, then I think that PSG has become, with Luis Enrique, a less naive team than they were before. We haven't seen this season, for example, the classic Marquinhos and Kimpembe having an entanglement with Donnarumma and making mistakes. We haven't seen that. It's not a team that fragmented anymore. Do you remember that last season they were fragmented in two with the front three not doing any defensive work, and then 8 players or 7 players having to defend, having to compensate. Well, we don't see that anymore. It's a solid team with no unbalance between their defensive effort and their offensive input. This is something very good. Then Luis Enrique, I think that he is the best manager that PSG has had for a long time, probably better than Emery too. For example, what he did against Real Sociedad, placing Dembele as a number 10, is something that no one expected. And Dembele was terrific setting up Kylian Mbappe. PSG is physical. They are stronger than Barcelona. If the game becomes a little bit chaotic, box to box, then PSG is going to profit that, because Mbappe is the best striker in the world. For me, there is no doubt about it. Him to score, by the way, 2.1. But let me say something about Barcelona, because I think there has been an improvement, and there has been an improvement, strangely, when Frenkie de Jong and Pedri were out. I think that Christensen, Frenkie, and Pedri, the three of them could return. Pedri is a little bit more unlikely. Frenkie, he might. Christensen, I think that he will certainly be in the squad. But should Xavi play these guys if they are not 100%? And on top of that, if Sergi Roberto, Fermin, Gundogan have proven that they can compete, I don't know about that. I want to see, this is a little bit of an issue for Xavi that he will have to ponder very well, because Barcelona has done very well without Pedri and Frenkie. And, a few things have happened in the last weeks that are tremendously positive. Weapons that Barcelona didn't know that they had. For example, Rafinha's runs against high defensive lines have proven to be decisive against the games against Getafe and Las Palmas. Fermin and Lamine Yamal in the counters, they've been terrific. How many times we saw Lamine Yamal accelerating with 40 yards in front of him against Napoli? These are things that Barcelona should be exploiting, because they have, work for them. And then I want to say that Koundé's moment is pretty decent right now. So I think that he may be the first choice on right back in the game, unless Xavi thinks that Araujo has to be the antidote against Mbappe. But I think that on the right flank, Koundé and Araujo are pretty fine defenders to try to stop Kylian Mbappe. But if Mbappe has the day, there is no stopping him. It's impossible. But anyway, Barcelona is not in a bad moment. I would stress that, but I think that Paris is better. So Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Paris, 170. Mbappe to score 2.1. I leave it there for you. And let's see who is marking Kylian Mbappe. If it is Araujo or Koundé. If it is Koundé, by the way, a yellow card for Koundé, 575, is a terrific money. And I think that Kylian Mbappe is going to challenge, or is going to try to have duels with a player like Jules Koundé that he knows from the French national side. Anyway, there is a lot of money there. Koundé to receive a card, 575.
I read the stats on Koundé. I think last season he's been booked around 10 times, and this season only once. So yeah, he's due a card.
No, but he improved. He improved this season. Last season he was terrible, and this season playing as a centre back, he's been really poor as well. I remember his game at Porto was appalling, abysmal. But since Pau Cubarsí set up and settle down in the team, I think that Araujo is playing a little bit more comfortable as well, because he knows that Pau Cubarsí can play the ball and Araujo has to focus only on defending. And Koundé feels less stressed because Araujo is less stressed as well. So Pau Cubarsí just jumping onto the first team has been a great thing for Barcelona, really.
Yeah.
Well, youngsters like Cubarsí, like Fermin, like Yamal being very important for this Barcelona. Harry's telling us that he can see Koundé getting booked. It's going to be a really hostile atmosphere against Barcelona. Even the PSG radical fans made a statement to be against Barcelona, because we've seen a lot this game in recent years. Mbappe, for instance, destroyed Barcelona in 2021 and in 2017. Was the famous remontada 6-1 defeat for PSG at Camp Nou, 4-0 in Paris. 4 great games this week. Remember that the second leg is next week, so we are gonna be really entertained by the Champions League. And of course, you can still place your tips in our website. We have a monthly tipster competition started on the 1st of April. We have also a yearly one, and you can win good prizes, money prizes. You can see in the yellow corner the amount of money that you get depending on the standings. Is very easy. You just register for free, place your tips, and you can try and win. Dani Fisichella is there, so you can follow him and you can try your luck and try your best in the Oddspedia Tipster competitions. Well, tell me, Alvaro, your safe bet for these quarterfinals.
Yeah, it would be Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Arsenal, 155.
Trust on Arsenal. We saw it earlier in the show. Dani?
PSG Barcelona both need to score 163. This tip, like all the tips that I give on the show, are of course on my profile on the tipster competition. Go and follow. Everything is transparent and currently winning, so otherwise I wouldn't say that.
And the ACCA, Dani, would be?
The ACCA is 3 selections: Arsenal to win, Real Madrid Asian handicap 0, and Atletico Madrid to win 7.29. The total odds.
For the trust in the home teams in the first leg, Alvaro?
Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Arsenal, Vinicius to be fouled twice or more, Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Atletico, altogether 4.
Good one. The prop bet of Vinicius to get fouled, especially if Walker is not in the pitch. I still remember when Fernandinho was in the pitch, Vinicius could take advantage of the Brazilian. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Luckily, happily, we are back to YouTube. Thanks for the patience. You can still follow us on Twitter, X. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks, Alvaro. Thanks, Dani. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.